we'll do it. So, during the winter, I mean, if it's a lousy day, the train might not be running, the planes might not be flying, and if you don't get here, it's too bad for you.
Hopefully they're all for you. CC a lot.
Parkway, I'm sure, and then another.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing. I get so many emails that aren't for me.
Every year.
I need somebody in my
So
office
it's,
to be
okay.
like, all right,
So
we're
it's
going
not
to
so
send
much
you
limits, it's just
on
on
to
your
it.
Yeah, we haven't quite decided to do that.
I've seriously thought about
So
it.
to take that off.
Filter through this stuff.
Eight,
9.
nine. So excited.
I want to get these minutes behind us, but you brought up a good point too. We'll talk about it.
Are we good to go?
I'm good to go, yeah.
You're good to go. Okay. You are alive.
Hi, everyone. I don't have anybody on the committee on Zoom, right?
Mm-mm.
All right, great. Great. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. So, action-packed agenda tonight. First, I'd like John,
Yes.
correct? Welcome. How are you? I haven't met you before. How? Why is everyone looking at me like that? That's all. All right.
We don't have name tags.
I know.
Should we introduce ourselves to John?
Yeah. Why don't we just go around and tell you who we are, and then maybe just say hello if you don't mind. Yeah.
Kristen Simonini, school committee. Nice to meet you, John. Nice to meet you.
Apparently Casey retires.
Well, I mean, we know each other very well.
And you still stand next
You got to be careful when you say that, having been a police chief.
Yes, because we did a wonderful job as the electrical foreman at the public safety building. That's how I know him that well. No priors that I know of.
Just
And
cautioning everybody who's listening.
the last 5 years, I have no idea. So I'm not on me.
I'm Michelle Kirkby of school committee.
Tony Papantonis. There's Bill Werner.
And I'm Mike Weber. How are you? You want to just tell us? Yeah. Just.
Yeah, John Messina. I've been in town for 33 years. I had 2 sons go through the school system, and
And we have lights in this room because of you.
Yeah.
You're in charge of signs.
yeah, I'm on the sign advisory board.
Okay.
For quite a few years. I'm Medfield Lion.
And are you still working for Griffin? I assume.
I left Griffin. I had to leave Griffin. I had my knees and my hips replaced, and so I couldn't go back doing all the hard work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I semi-retired.
Fantastic.
On a good note.
Awesome. All right. Well, welcome. So we have everyone received the November 1st meeting packet. I assume we were able to get through some meeting minutes last meeting, but I'd love to get the other 4 that are in the meeting packet approved tonight if we could, so we can get them posted. So, yes, everyone received that, looked at them. And John, obviously, you haven't been here, but, so just as a note that, was brought up to me, if you're not at a meeting, you can actually vote to approve the meeting minutes if you watch the meeting online, is how I understand the open meeting law too. So, even if you weren't here, so if we're ever short on people, that's how I understood it.
Sure.
But that said, I think we have enough people here to approve these anyways. So, do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 24th?
Motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you. All right.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Caroline. All right. Want to just go around the table here?
Kristen Sinini, yes.
Carolyn Casey, yes.
Paul Meany, yes. Robert Worth, yes.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Tony Papantonis, yes.
Bill Warner, yes.
Mike Weber, yes. Perfect. Next, do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 21st? The draft meeting minutes that were in our packet.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Caroline.
Second.
Thank you, Kristen. All right. And Kristen, may you just start again?
Kristen Sinini, yes.
Carolyn Casey, yes.
Paul Meany, yes. Robert Worth, yes.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Tony Papantonis, yes.
Bill Warner, yes.
And Mike Weber, yes. Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 11th, please?
So I think September 11th might have had someone missing from an attendee standpoint. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
I think I went back and looked. I think it was this meeting. Bob Meany might have also been at this one. There was one of the attendees wasn't correct. So I went and counted, and it wasn't possible for us to be running the meeting with who was listed as attendees.
it's 9/11. I had Bob, Michelle, Carolyn, Kristen, Robert, Meredith, me, and Robert. So, so let me just double check that. So, Bob's not listed here anywhere, but he was here.
So that's when we were both on the phone for it.
Okay.
He was in the car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was in the car, you were
Yes,
in
you
the
were
car.
in the car.
Okay, perfect. So that's good. Thank you for recognizing. So if we just changed, maybe Bob and Kristen were virtual that day for the 9/11. We'll make that note. And do I hear a motion to approve
Motion to approve.
the amendment? Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Kristen. All right.
Kristen Sinini, yes.
Carolyn Casey, yes.
Paul Meany, yes.
Robert Worth, yes.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Tony Papantonis, yes.
Bill Warner, yes.
Mike Weber, yes. And then last meeting, October 3rd. Motion to approve those meeting minutes. Carolyn, you have the motion. Second. Keep it consistent. Thank you. Yeah, it makes it easier to take the
Makes
notes
it really
that way.
easy for the minute.
Kristen Sinini, yes.
Carolyn Casey, yes.
Paul Meany, yes. Robert Worth, yes.
Michelle Kirkby, yes.
Tony Papantonis, yes.
Bill Warner, yes.
Mike Weber, yes. Perfect. Thank you, guys. All right, off our plate. Next, you guys ready? Let's do it. Just as you guys are setting up real quick, did anyone see my email about Mather?
Yeah.
So, so Steve's here for just to kind of keep the warrant committee up to date, and I believe the intention is to hopefully get that on your agenda for the 13th.
Yes, we, I sent an email around to all our members asking for soliciting interest, and anyone wants to, take another spot, and we'll talk about that at the 13th.
Thanks, Steve.
I don't see it on here.
You don't see it on it?
Nope.
Okay,
Great.
I get it on mine.
Okay. Found it. Got it.
it is.
I found it.
And then Meredith, just as a point of reference, sent me a note. She's gonna be late.
Do you wanna move through your own slides?
Yeah,
I'll
I
leave it
have
up there?
this.
Okay.
You do it on present mode?
Maybe. I use
This will be
PowerPoint.
interesting because we did it on Google and it's on PowerPoint.
I was gonna say, I don't
Sometimes
use,
there's some issues
Top
with
tab
that.
under, it says slideshow between animations and review.
I don't use
And then to the
PowerPoint
left, go
anymore.
play from start. You lost.
I lost it. Hold on.
Yeah, there you go.
There it is. There it is, awesome, thank you.
Oh, nope, because it's in the draft view.
We see
No,
it
it is
right.
for you, not for
Oh,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
too-
we see
wow.
You're good.
I'm gonna move away from
Yeah,
the
it
table.
works.
Take 2 days off.
Thank you.
Exactly.
Well, thanks, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to do this presentation that Steve and I put together. We wanted to put together a presentation that went over the educational program that we submitted to MSBA, and we didn't want to go through every single part of it because the assumption is that you folks have looked at it as part of the SPC, that we've given you copies of it a few months ago. And also, when we did the preliminary draft of putting all the data in there, it was a 72-slide presentation, which no one in their right mind needs to sit through that. So we pared it down to about under 20 slides to go through. But we really wanted to focus on, you know, what we did as a district and how it the educational piece and how it relates to the design of the buildings. That's really an important piece that we really haven't talked about and how they go hand in hand. So I think we always want to frame every conversation we have around the district and any project we're doing around our mission statement. It's been updated this year. The Medfield Public Schools, in partnership with families in the community, fosters a safe, inclusive learning environment, empowering our students to meet high standards, adapt to change, and become responsible, contributing members of society. So during our strategic plan process, we got lots of feedback from folks in the community, teachers, staff, everyone. We rewrote this year, and we're really happy with the way it came out. So our goals, again, the assumption is that you folks have looked at the educational program before. We want to review the required components MSBA put together in the educational program, share some of the Medfield specific items that we put together, and then bring it all together how the architects took our education vision and put it in the design of the building. So MSBA requires this as part of the educational program. That's their definition and what they want in the actual document that we submit to them. As a part of the process, last time around, we did have some visioning sessions, some community forums, and then 2 specific with the Wheelock neighborhood. The visioning sessions, there was with a consultant that went through and really looked at what the community wanted for a school and what types of things they wanted in the school. There's a 54-page document on the website that highlights everything and all the results that came out of the visioning. And then also on the website, you can look at what came out of the community forums as well. So if you haven't looked at it yet, you go on the school website, you go to explore, and there's a section that says elementary school, and it says 2017 to 2020. That's the one you want to look at, and everything that we did is there. So it gives you a flavor of what the process was like last time. So the required components of the educational program, every single one of these has to be hit in the document. This is what MSBA puts together. So grade and school configurations, class size policies, school scheduling method, teaching methodology and structure. The curriculum, every single aspect of the curriculum has to be described. So language arts, math, science, social studies, world language, goes into academic support and guidance, teacher planning, lunch program, technology, instruction, media center, the library, visual, performing arts, physical education. Every single part has to be a part of this plan and program. Special education is a part of this, and it has a whole separate document that DESE requires as part of the MSBA program. STEAM and STEM programs, transportation, then is a confidential piece of this, which is the security, which we worked with a consultant to outline all security and visual access in the new building. So what we're going to do is take a few of these and explain to you how we describe them to MSBA and then how that translated in the design of the building. First one up is the schedule, Steve.
Yeah, so if you take a look over here, again, labor of love. I'm not a high school principal, thank God, with their schedule, but if you take a look up here, this is what a typical schedule looks like for grade 4 or grade 5. So I'll talk a little bit about how the grade, there's 9 teachers at each grade level, and we set them into 4-person team and a 5-person team. So what happens is a 4-person team would be on this team, which would be like, you know, the brown or peach, whatever you want to call it, wind block, and then the other 5 teachers would be on a different color wind block, and same thing for grades 5. So this is what it looks like, and as Jeff talked about, you know, I'm very, very happy about this schedule because first it was really developed and changed a few years ago based on teacher feedback. We have a lot of great things that go on in the building, but when you look here, you will see that there is a lot of time allotted for ELA, meaning Reader's Workshop and writing, but also math, especially with our new program. So there's an hour allotted each day for that. But the other thing that I think that I really want to highlight in our schedule that I think is great is you'll see some of these green spots here. So Makerspace MS is Makerspace in tech. So what that means there is that for 1 month, grade 4 might be in the Makerspace working with Julie Lowry, our library media specialist, working on some tie-in to the curriculum that has been developed at Common Planning Time. And during that same time, grade 5 spends the whole month with Joe Ahern, our technology integrationist, working on how to integrate technology into the different curriculum areas that we have. And the next month after that, they flip-flop. So grade 5 would go to the Makerspace, grade 4 would see Joe Ahern. You can also see some other things over here. SEL, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is social emotional learning. We use a program called Harmony. Really, probably the most important thing we do because we have to make sure kids are there and ready to learn. So that's in our schedule each week. And over here you will see library. And library is not a typical special at Dale Street. So the teachers will go down and attend, but that's a time during the week that the kids can visit the library. They can get books for their independent reading during Reader's Workshop that you see that they have every day. And it's also a time if they're doing any type of research that they can go down and do that as well. And the librarians do an awesome job of having other activities. So we'll walk through all this, but if there's ever any questions that you have, you know, please let me know. But again, as you may remember, something, you know, we want to change how elementary school was from when we were kids, but it still has the elementary teacher does math and ELA and science and social studies. So they're kind of the master chefs of everything.
Can you talk about wind block for a second?
Oh, absolutely, sure. So wind block is right here, and I have to give credit to the former principal at Dale Street, Kim Cave, because when I was coming in, we were really working with, you know, how can we have kids not miss opportunity in curriculum time? So when I was a principal back, you know, 12, 15 years ago in a different district, I would go in and I'd go in to watch kids learn. In 5 minutes into a math lesson, they would stand up and they'd go over to a music class, and they'd miss that whole lesson, and there was really no way to duplicate that lesson. So what we decided to, we brainstormed, is that we have these wind blocks, which is a half hour each day, and it stands for what I need. So those blocks is no new instruction during that time, but that might be if Jeff is taking trumpet on Mondays in a small group, every Monday he would get up out of the classroom and leave. The teacher would still have kids in their classroom, and that's a great time to intervene and enrich the kids that are in there during that time. In Wind Block, we also have some of our special education pull-out services. So that means that it doesn't mean they're not pulled out any other time of the day, but I would say a high percentage of the kids do not miss class on outside that schedule. Also, if we have kids that are seeing OT or PT, or they're seeing guidance or psychology, a lot of times that's right in that wind block as well. So it really allows us to be very inclusive and have the kids in class being directed by the teacher, or facilitated, I should say, by the teacher throughout the time. So you'll see that wind block, if you have any questions with that, I'd be happy to answer them. But that's in every teacher's schedule. But if this team is 1:15 to 1:45, there'd be another wind block that happened maybe 5 minutes after that. That would be 1:50 to call it 2:20. So there's really 4 of them that go in the afternoons.
Even the red is specials as in art and music.
Yep.
So why is PE listed separately?
Great question. So right over here, so what happens is we have 6 specials in a 5-day week. So the specials that we have are 2 world language, okay, 2 PE, art, and health. Okay, are our specials. What we decided to do in order to get some of these other things is the second PE of the week, which is right over here, the second PE of the week is 30 minutes. In the way that it looks like that, and I'll make sure if I'm not being clear that I explain this. When we were all in elementary school, I would venture that if Jeff was the teacher, that we would all go to art, you know, to the art room from Jeff's class. The way that I constructed it last year with input from the teachers is that all the specials besides this green PE the kids are mixed up on this team. So if this is the peach team and it's 4 teachers, so let's say it's you 4 right over here, you all have special at the same time, so that you can plan together if you would like. But the only way I could configure that, because our world languages aren't full time, is I had to mix the students. So what would happen is 4 of your kids and 4 of your kids and 4 of your kids might be going to art at that time. So these red specials up here all merge specials. But when they go to their second PE, the 30-minute, that's just with your class. So that's why it's separated that way. And especially with our new math program, this has been wonderful because they still have a common planning time each week. But then if they're looking to say, hey, how we want to develop this lesson more, these teachers all have specials at the same time. So all 4 of them don't have to be like, oh, can you meet before school? Can you meet after school? Now they all have it at the same time.
And so that purple ensemble, is that music for everybody?
Yep, exactly. So this, I can tell you, this is a 4th grade because this is when 4th grade has it. So 4th grade has ensemble on Wednesday mornings. So that's when I think, and the numbers will come up in a little bit, but we might have 105 4th graders or so that are doing brass. They all go to the gymnasium. And then we might have, 45, 50 string players. They will go to the cafeteria. And then we might have 40 chorus kids, and they'll go into a tight music room because we don't have any bigger spaces than those two. So that would be, so all the kids are occupied at that time doing ensemble, and then the teachers, all 9 of them with special education included, would be meeting in a classroom to conduct their common planning time. The same thing happens if you had a 5th grade schedule, it would be in this block right here. So 5th grade's on Thursdays this year. You're welcome. Any other questions?
questions
Just looking
before I
at
go to the
because I
next
know
one?
that's kind of a lot. I live with it every day, so I want to make sure I'm not going too fast for you.
So our architects took that and looked at the schedule and then incorporated some of these important parts into the design of the school. So one of it is want to make sure it was a flexible building. No matter what the schedule is like, that last slide, someone else could do a different schedule. The building needed to be flexible enough to take any schedule it wanted for grades 4 and 5 and be able to utilize it. So it wasn't a static schedule that was going to be there forever. The design had to support whole grades to go to band, orchestra, and chorus. They had to at the exact same time because that was what we put together so that teachers had common planning time. We wanted to make sure that had to take place. So the new school was designed to have all 3 programs operating simultaneously. Now Steve does that now, but it's clunky because of the space. It's really clunky. If you ever come around when lessons are going on in the school, sometimes they're in the hallway, sometimes they're in the vestibule as you come in by the columns. They're just all over the place. There's really no great space to do that. So that the design that we asked for had all those types of spaces. We knew that was important for our kids. Again, the multiple locations needed to support 5 simultaneous ensemble lessons. So 2 practice rooms, 2 sides of an operational partition in the band room. So the band room we designed was probably a little bit bigger than this, and it had a partition in the middle so you could pull it in the middle and have 2 separate band lessons going on at the same time. And then we were really thoughtful about the transitioning and where we put the actual classrooms and pods, which we'll get to a little bit later in the presentation. That the transition was really in the general area where kids had to go. And there was a main street, which we'll show you. The school was designed so that when you came into the main door, there was a main corridor that came all the way down and the classrooms were pods off of that. So we tried to be really thoughtful about having kids not having to go too far when they're doing, they stay in the educational wing or they go around the gym, but it's really all in that main street area. It was really a lot of thought and conversation went into that design from our architects.
So again, we're in the business of teaching and learning. So we broke this slide down into 3 areas that we can look at. Number 1, I think that everything we do is student-centered. It has to be meeting the students where they are. And then we want to continue to use differentiated teaching because we know that there's so many kids that learn differently. So it's really important to have those different methodologies with that. And lastly, following off that, the schedule has to provide for central instructional focus in skill intervention in and around a lot of different areas. So that the student is exactly where everything starts and everything branches out from there. Our curriculum practices, you could see from the schedule, and Jeff talked about earlier, that the core subjects are right up there of what we have and things that we want to have, and I think we do very well, but also the MSBA requires us to have them in there. And I think that right here I talked about earlier, the way I structure it at Dale Street, or we structure it, I should say, is that the classroom teachers are broken into 2 groups. And one has a group of 4, one has a group of 5. That helps with our win time, and it also helps with our lunch time so that we don't have too many kids in the cafeteria at one time. And then
And you'll see with the design, when we get to it, the pods are broken up in that same way, so that the way that Steve has it organized would go into the new school that way too, to keep the little communities together. If it's going to be a larger school, as that one was going to be at 575 students, we wanted to have that small school feel by making the pods and the teams together.
And then looking over here at the last one, the student pullout services. So we would have during that win block, the students that needed to have their goals on their IEP met right there. We'd also have kids that may not be on an IEP that would have reading or math intervention. Our reading specialists and math specialists, again, service kids during that time. And again, like we said, music lessons are a big part of that as well, to make sure that they're having their individual lessons. And I think the music teachers really enjoy that because it's smaller groups. So when they have the ensemble, they might have 40, 80, 100 kids, but when they have their smaller group, it's anywhere from 3, 4 kids. It might go up to 8 kids depending on the instrument and the year that they have it. And lastly, going from the curriculum on what we're doing to the instructional pieces over here is that one of the main things, that we do at Dale Street, and I think we do very well, is the teacher is the facilitator. So again, it's a lot of times it's like, I'll do, we do, you do. So they'll have that kind of methodology in their mind. But once they work, and I was in a math class today, once they work as a whole class and the description of the lesson, the goal is announced and they start working through a few, there's a lot of collaborative breakouts that happen. And right now, the rooms, as you all probably know, are not large at Dale Street by any stretch. So for them to kind of have 22 or 23 kids in the room and break into groups, you'll have the 4th grade teachers that are by the cafeteria use that when applicable. You'll have kids in the hallways a lot, but it's not really those breakout spaces that we need. So it's really important that the way that we teach now, and teachers, if they're doing center work, so a lot of times they'll use a workshop model. So they'll introduce something and then they'll have 5 kids working with the teacher, 5 kids over here maybe doing some type of game, math game, and 5 kids over here. But it's hard to kind of maneuver that around in a very small classroom. And the last one over here is just kind of the where they sit. They have their individual desk there, but again, through our wonderful PTO, through our wonderful MCPE, we have whiteboard tables that are in the shape of like kidney tables where kids can come in and the teacher can have 4 or 5 kids around there. They do the best they can arranging things around, but obviously the rooms are quite small, but our teachers are master craftspeople that like really maximizing the space that they can in the room, but they really try to make sure that they individualize instruction as much as they can. You see that within the wing group when they intervene and enrich, but even when they're doing a lesson, if they have gone over decimals for 3 or 4 days and see that this group of 4 kids don't understand it, they're going to make sure that during that center time that they're here breaking it down for them even more, maybe using math manipulatives as well so they can put their hands on things. But we try to get as much appropriate furniture as we can in the room to help support the kids learn.
So the design response, we spent a lot of time in this section because we want to make sure that our teachers were involved in this. One of the neat things about the architect that was chosen was they had an educational consultant on their staff, so that person would work with Steve and I and the teachers, and they had individual meetings with every single grade level, all the teachers, and tried to get a sense of what they were looking for in terms of their classroom. So we spent a lot of time in this area, so we wanted to make sure this was really done well. The design organized the classrooms into 3 pods or teams per level. So the blue you see here are the pods and the teams. But again, this was going to be built for 575, so you see there's up to 12 classrooms in that, and this is all in the first floor. And then the second floor, the educational wing, mirrored this exact same design. So this was the main street I was talking about. So you come in and you walk in this way, and then all the movement pretty much was all in here, except for phys ed here and some of the arts that were down the other way. So it was really a thoughtful way to do it. One of the things was really important in what we've been doing in education, and quite frankly now we're mandated to do in education, is some of the benchmarking and data gathering that we need to do for reading in this state. We were doing it anyway, So what we decided was really important was to put these smaller rooms where teachers could pull kids into, do some of this testing, because much of it is one-on-one, and it gives them that private area to do that. So private breakout rooms are provided in each classroom pod for a total of 6 private breakout rooms in the entire school. So teachers would have to, we envisioned it, and we talked to them about it, would this work for you? And they said, sure, we would just sign up for certain times, certain days, and we would know that Steve would have it on Monday from this certain amount of time, and Carolyn would have it this certain amount of time, and it would work out perfect. They thought it was wonderful because they don't have the space to do this now anyway, so.
And one of the things is one of the consultants we work with, who was great, if you remember, Jeff, way back at the beginning, she had brought like blocks in and stuff like
Oh,
that,
right.
and left them in the teacher's room. So the teachers could go in and devise kind of how they wanted set up, leave notes and everything, and the consultant would kind of been in a lot of schools, kind of look at it, and then she would meet with each individual grade level or department to make sure that it was, you know, to their liking. So the teachers had an exceptional amount of say kind of on how this was designed, which was awesome, and I think they felt very proud of it. But it started almost like when you're youngins with like blocks and whatever, and she came in with different sizes and how it would look, one for like a classroom size, one for a breakout room. So it was pretty neat to have those in the teacher's room, and teachers have accessibility to really come up with the development.
And then you'll see the purple classrooms here. Those are special education spaces. So that was really important for us to make sure that special education spaces, the proximity, excuse me, was right in about all the classrooms. So that number one, that kids feel like they're part of the group. And if they do have a pull-out system where they're going to be pulled out of the classroom to get some individual instruction, it was right around the corner and they were still near their friends and their peers. That was really important to us. But also we have a push-in system where, you know, teachers go in and work with kids in the classroom. So it made sense for that to be right in this general area. So each one of these is a different special education area, which we'll get into in a few more slides when we break that down a little bit. But a lot of time and effort was put into this. The teachers felt really good about this because they were a part of it, as Steve mentioned, but also made a lot of sense the way that it was organized. So we had the 4 classrooms here, the 5 here, and then the other 5 over there. It made a lot of sense for that.
So we talked earlier, and you saw in our schedule that there's a huge onus on social emotional, and again, I got to give credit to the district because we were, you know, even before the new strategic plan and a lot of stuff that you see on the news, I feel like with Dr. Dave Worthley and Dr. Morrison, like we've really put an emphasis around this. So looking at these, just in case you're not familiar with it, and I'll break these into 3 groups, is first the CASEL standards. And the CASEL standards are a national group of standards of social emotional learning. So you can see the 5 characteristics of the CASEL standards that are right there. I also want to give credit to the teachers because probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, we developed a new elementary report card that was K-5. And we heard from feedback from parents that each school had slightly different report cards, and when you were going to a different school, you were kind of relearning a report card. So all 3 schools with teachers, special education specialists came in, developed a report card, but instead of the section that used to be on all report cards, like attends to homework, does this, like, is organized, we decided to use that as our CASEL standards are in the report card. So now teachers collect data on these on a daily basis, you know, on how kids are doing in school. Our district and school core values, as you can see down the bottom of all of our slides here, is our inclusivity, respect, responsibility, and continuous growth. That really, you know, we're trying to do every single day, both to model as adults and also to have our kids model that. And the last thing, and the most important thing, is that we're trying to foster the pro-social behaviors. So again, we know that no matter how great our teachers are, to give high quality instructions, our kids got to be ready and attend to learn. So if we can give them these qualities, and I know Dr. Billsborough is starting this at Memorial, and Mrs. Caulfield is continuing it on, and we're working really hard together to create a consistent, you know, avenue around social emotional learning and making that an emphasis so the kids are ready to come in and learn. And part of the thing, and I know Jeff will probably talk about this on the next slide, is that when we were working through our last draft, we talked about the whole thing with natural light. You know, the current school that we're in, you know, some of in the older wing, some of those big windows, yes, you get some great light that comes through there, but some of the classrooms around the cafeteria in the newer building don't really have much light. And even in the older part, when you walk down the hallway, it's very dark. You know, there's not really any windows in there. The floor is dark. So trying to get very natural light in there, using of colors. The movement space is really important. And Jeff had talked about that from the breakouts in the hallways. We created a lot of breakout space there. But one thing that I really want to talk about here is when we talk about our movement break space, we have now at Dale Street something that we call our comfort room, and it's right off the cafeteria. And I have to give credit to our PTO and our MCPE, but also Mrs. Mulligan and Mrs. Strekalowski, who are two special education teachers at Dale Street, that we knew a couple years ago that there are kids that get dysregulated and they can't be ready to learn. And what they need sometimes is they need to take time out, and in there's weighted blankets, there's music, there's different fidget stuffs, and sometimes it's 5 or 10 minutes in there is all it takes to get them back in. And I think where it was a minimum of students, maybe back 5-10 years ago, now that student population is growing, and to try to regulate those students, we came up with that comfort zone. Again, in Dale Street, we're making it work any way we can, but knowing when a new school comes, hopefully, that we will put even more of an emphasis on that. And I think looking at the school that we were trying to develop the last time, there are multiple spaces for that, because you do need probably a space for each grade level, because with 200, 250 kids coming through. So I think that was really one of the important spots, and again, just coming whole school gathering, SEL, we really love our SEL assemblies, and some of you have seen them or seen them posted on Twitter. But right now, we can't really use the gymnasium because it's too, like, when you have the seats up there and then they're not really close down to what's happening on the floor, and the acoustics aren't always great. And if kids are going to play something, we don't have the technology in there. And then we have them all in the cafeteria, which I love to have the whole school together. It's one of my favorite times. But again, having 400 and 410 kids in that cafeteria is really challenging. We just had our first one last Friday. Shannon McDonnell's class did it on responsibility, and it's just such a rewarding thing to have the kids own the core values and get up there and demonstrate in front of their peers. But again, to have a bigger space to do that would be awesome as well.
So the design response in this, when we worked with the architects, we wanted to have features that helps promote the social emotional learning. So Steve mentioned the comfort rooms. They call them sensory rooms. I call them a calm room. It's all the same thing, but it's a space that when kids get dysregulated, they need to go there. It's really a good space. It's something that Steve has made literally in a closet over there, a little bit bigger than a closet, but something that would have been perfect, in a new school that we really need to have. We really thought it was important to have a wellness suite. So we wanted to bring together guidance psychology, BCBA, a board certified behavioral analyst, and a nurse so they could collaborate. Because a lot of what they do is talk about the same students and work with the same students. So we wanted to have that wellness suite to do that. We really thought it was important for the outside classroom. If you remember, we talked a little bit about having outside classrooms and whether it's, a site on one side of town or the other, we still have outdoor classrooms. We thought that was really important for that social learning piece. We had a learning stair, which was in there, which we don't have a picture of it on any of the presentation, but it was a way to get to the second floor of the building, but it was an extra wide, almost as wide as this room, stair that went up. But it was also used for assemblies, for kids to get together. You could do presentations on there. We had a plan to have a drop-down screen where you could project from there and kids could be there. So we figured we could fit 4 to 5 classrooms at a time, and you could still use it functionally as a stair to go up. We had seen that in another school that architects had built, and it was really a great feature. The design of the cafeteria is really important because we wanted to make sure there were breakout rooms in the cafeteria. If you know anything with elementary lunches, sometimes it's lunch bunch groups, kids that just get overwhelmed with that cafeteria, and they either go outside of the lunchroom and eat with a guidance person. We wanted to make that part of the lunchroom experience. So we had some breakout rooms as part of the lunch bunch and options for kids to do that. And again, the outdoor area that we talked about, we thought it was a really good connection to make sure that those outdoor spaces were there for kids. We looked at doing gardens, those kinds of things, which I think we really want to consider in the next project as well. It was just so meaningful. We were able to visit a school in Needham and one in Harvard that had similar outdoor spaces, which we thought were important for our kids.
Jeff, before you go on, I just want to bring up 2 points on this. So the first off is the cafeteria space, and as Jeff mentioned, we do have lunch bunches, but what I'm seeing as principal is you see more and more kids that maybe aren't affiliated with the lunch bunch group, but still need that area where it's just a little bit overstimulating for them. So they might not require a lunch bunch, or maybe they don't want to go to a lunch bunch. But again, I think that was a great idea for the group the last time. And the other thing up here, which I'm very happy to see bringing us back into a couple years ago, is that every Friday morning, we have what we call a student update meeting. And that's with the guidance counselor, the nurse, and also the school psychologist. We don't always have the BCBA because she's shared in between buildings, but we really sit down and we talk about kids and what kids might need our supports and everything. So it's so great to see that wellness suite because that's something we do on a daily basis now. But again, having them all together, because right now the school psychologists, the way the school's figured is one over here, but the guidance counsel's here, and they really just share information. And a lot of times the stuff that goes on between both of them, or if one's, testing and can't talk, they work with the same kids. So it's really important. So it's nice to see that on there.
Steve, which school is the BCBA shared with?
So the BCBA right now is shared with Wheelock, and there's actually a little sliver of time with Blake this year. Yeah. And we have Amy Kelly, who's absolutely fantastic. She's awesome. So over here, I just want to bring up, we talked about our specials that are so important, and I broke this one down just with music, just 3 areas again. So number 1, coming back to something I said earlier, the student center. I think Medfield does an amazing job of valuing the whole child. I think it's a central core, and I think it's really important. And anybody in this room, and I know a lot of you have vast experience, in Medfield and have been here for a long time. Obviously the history of musical excellence here is really second to none. And I think, selfishly, I'll say for the Dale Street teachers, and really those music teachers work in all buildings, but they're the foundation, when they're down there in Ryan Dexter and Brenna Evans and Manus Humbleson and Jason Bielick and Dave Ruggiero and all and go on and on. They do such a great job. So it starts again with the student. And then here's just some participation numbers currently what we have. So our band program right now has 207 participants. That's grade 4 and 5. And band is, again, any of your brass instruments, your percussions or anything. They have the pull-out lesson with the third wind and the ensemble that you saw on the schedule each week. Our orchestra program has 86 participants right now, and that's all of our strings. Okay, that's combination between 4th and 5th grade. And then we have 83 students participating twice a week with our vocal or chorus programs.
Can you just, because that's a lot more than it used to be, and you guys have worked to expand that. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So when you see 83, again, that's a combination, but I think it's almost an even break. Let's call it 40 each or whatever. It's just really challenging right now because as you can imagine, at the school, there's really 2 big spaces, right? The cafeteria and the gymnasium. Well, those are taken up by the brass and the strings. Now, Dave Ruggiero and Anne-Marie Tremblay are absolutely fantastic and put a lot of work into the vocals, and they have chorus. So right now, there's a small little room at the beginning hallway heading down the gym that there's like risers in, but it's literally right here. And sometimes they'll try to squeeze 40 kids in there every single Wednesday and Thursday that are in there. Now, when the weather gets nice, they try to go out to the stairs by the pillars, but yet the acoustics and the sounds and everything aren't great with that. But I do give them a lot of credit, but it's just that number is growing and growing. And they've grown so much that they've changed. We do have general music at Dale Street, but they also are doing what they call a vocal workshop. So the kids that are really into the singing, that take chorus, Anne-Marie and Dave have done a fantastic job and have started this thing called Vocal Workshop for those kids that are really serious about it. So it's awesome. It's just, I would love to give them a good space that they could have, because any of our assemblies, Memorial Day, other things, I'm always going to music saying, hey, can you do something? Can you have the kids play something or sing something? Graduation's another thing that they do, but it's just so hard to get them in there. Again, like everybody else, they don't complain. They wish they had bigger space, but they really do the best. They're masters of trying to get in there, but the room, I couldn't even tell you, it's probably not much bigger.
Probably a third of the size of this.
Yeah, not much bigger than
it's small.
that. So, and then lastly over here, the challenges, which again, they're just real, and I think most of you know them, but I think they need to be recognized, is that there's really 2 undersized classrooms dedicated to the music program. So there's one behind the gym stage on the right-hand side. Amanda Tumbleson has made that look like amazing, and the Medfield Music Association has given a lot of money in order for that to be spruced up, so I'm very grateful to them.
By the way, we have noticed that Chief's name is carved in the back wall back there.
Oh, yeah,
There's
yeah,
all the
well,
names carved there.
I don't
We
know
did
if he-
find your name.
I don't know if he did it. Can we run a fingerprint analysis on that here?
It would have been the other side, in the showers, and the
Yeah,
showers
yeah.
were still there.
Yes, yeah.
And they might have got turned on during music lessons.
So we have, and then the other music room is the one I was just talking about. Now, again, even with that other music room, that doubles as, if they don't have a vocal workshop one day, then you might see Ryan Dexter using some brass, the small groups in there. again, looking here, there's, our instrument lessons take place in the hallways. We just have to do that. Our secretaries, Lynn Malmquist and Ann Gilberti, do a great job. But if I ever showed you the spreadsheet about, okay, on Mondays, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, this is where all the kids are. But there's such a vast array of instruments, which is fantastic. It's just hard because if there's a lot of times where the vestibule is right when you walk in the door. From the pillars, there's a group of 4 or 5 violins there, and then you go right through the doors. You see Ryan Dexter in the corner. Amanda Tumbleson is in the back room. You have another group that's in the room with Dave Ruggiero, and we have kids in the cafeteria. And last year we had to have them right outside the office, which is perfectly fine. I love having them, but again, you have parents coming in and out picking up kids, and you have people right there with music stands. So I give the music staff the most credit because it's tough, and I'm always working to create space. But that's one thing that I'm just trying to create bigger area on the same area, which is tough. And our last one over here is our ensemble practices take place in our bigger areas, and there's really the 2 biggest areas in the school, which I don't think are shocking to anybody, is the cafeteria and the gymnasium.
So if you haven't figured it out yet, the music program is a big part of the Dale Street experience.
My question is, do all kids have to participate in music?
Yes, yeah, they have to participate in one part of music, so they don't have to take an instrument.
Right.
So what happens is if they don't take an instrument, then they participate in general music. Yeah, so they all get a piece of music, and that's why I think that Dave Ruggiero and Anne Marie went to vocal workshop, because there were some kids in general music that might not have been as serious, and they had some kids that were really, good with vocals, so that's why they branched off. Now from general music, they still do that, but the vocal workshop is kind of that upper level for kids that have that passion.
So Tony, when we were doing this presentation last week, we were just running some numbers, and 93.3% of Dale Street kids perform on one of the 3 ensembles. So it's almost everybody. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
You did recorders in 3rd grade?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I tried to get rid of my
Yeah.
Three blind mice.
Some flutophones. Flutophones when I was in 3rd grade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you also said the music was increasing, the chorus was increasing. Does that mean kids are leaving the band and the orchestra for the music? Because everybody's in something.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the numbers. I would say right now, since I've been there, I would say, I don't even want to guess, but right now, if I say there's 107 or so in one of the grade levels, that might be down slightly. But I think that what happens is the music. What would happen is if you take general music, if you don't want to do an ensemble, they have, like you saw it on the main schedule, like a plus class, like a book plus or something like that. But a lot of kids aren't moving to that. They're moving to go into that vocal workshop and take chorus. So I'd say out of anything, the chorus one has probably expanded the most, while those plus classes are kind of shrinking,
It's quite impressive music.
Mhm.
That's a lot for.
Well, as Jeff said, that's a high number. I mean, we have 401, 402 kids, and I think the number when I counted it up today was like 376. So out of 402 is a pretty high number.
So that was a big part of the design. We wanted to make sure that we had the space. After hearing what they go through now, what Steve had described, we spent a lot of time with the music staff to help with this design, and our architects are phenomenal with this. So one of probably the best place that we could have would be a modern, up-to-date cafetorium, because we can't have an auditorium in elementary school because that costs a lot. But MSBA will let you have a cafetorium. So I learned a lot about things like if the stage is under 36 inches, it's not considered a stage. You can still be a cafetorium. If it's over 36, then you have to pay additional money for MSBA. So we did a lot of work with that, but the design that we had the acoustics, had the space. We could have 150 kids in the band at the same time, practicing on a weekly basis for ensemble, and that was what the goal was, to try to get it to that level. So there were 3 areas in this design that we went above MSBA numbers for, and what they allocated. One was special education, one was the gymnasium, and the third was in the music department, to make sure that we had the space we want to do. So the general music design that were dedicated spaces for general music. We don't really have that now, but we want to make sure we had spaces for the group lessons, so they're not in the hallways or in the vestibule. Music rooms allow students and teachers to have appropriate space and instruction without disturbing neighboring classes. So again, in the sixties, they designed schools like the addition in Dale Street where you have a cafeteria and then you put all classrooms around the cafeteria, which I guess they thought was a great idea in the mid to late sixties, but not great for noise control when you're trying to teach a class. So that we wanted to get rid of that and give that really good space for them to have that instruction and learning and not disturb other folks. And then we looked at the storage. One thing Steve didn't mention as a challenge, but if you walk into Dale Street, you see it, the storage of instruments. He's done a really good job organizing that with the music department. They have some places in the cafeteria, but there are times where there is just instruments everywhere. And we really wanted to make sure, and the music department came up with this because they're like, we got to have storage in this new place. So they came up with some really good ideas, and that was all built into it so that we could have 255 instruments stored at once, which was a big help.
And one other thing, just to kind of go off this that Jeff talked about, in hopefully the new building, is obviously when you saw the schedule back a few slides ago, if on Wednesdays, if grade 4 is doing their ensemble, there's no possible way that grade 5 could ever have PE. Because the gym's used.
Right.
So you can't be doing that. And the same thing where we talk about our school now, and there's no breakout space, any of those 4th grade teachers, they can't, on Thursdays when grade 5 has ensemble, they can't do a breakout even in the library because that's being used by the strings. So one day down the road, it's going to be great that you can simultaneously have an ensemble for a grade, but also be able to run a schedule, you know, where kids can be doing that. So right now it just, you try to jimmy rig the schedule to say, okay, well, we can't have PE for either grade because these spaces are just all locked up.
So special education.
Yeah, special education. And Jeff said, special education, is in our plan, but then also has its own section. And again, I got to give a lot of credit to our Director of Student Services, Mary Brule, because she helped us tremendously with the plan going forward. But if you're not familiar with special education, over on the left, I broke this again into 3 parts. So services, we have inclusion that's there, and that's when people go into the classroom and support our kids. We have pull out because of some of the plans and the needs of kids, they need to be pulled out. We also have co-taught. We have 2 co-taughts. We have one in 5th grade and one in 4th grade. And then I thought that it was important, the services, BCBA, Jeff mentioned it earlier, but it's something that maybe a lot of people don't understand about a board certified behavior analysis, so that they're all helping the kids. And, there's one at Memorial, we share one, there's one at the middle school. So really important. So those are the services. On top of, incorporated in that is PT and OT and speech. All that stuff is in there with inclusion or pull out, and those teachers work within those kids.
So just on the co-taught, if you don't know what that is a general education teacher and a special education teacher in the same room together all day. So 2 teachers in the classroom the entire day. And then they team teach, work extremely well together. It's a great model. It's an expensive model. That's why we only have 1 in each grade level. We'd love to have them everywhere, but it's just really expensive.
And even at Jeff's point, what we did here this year, what we tried is, so we have 2 classrooms, 1 in 4 and 1 in 5. And what we did is we took the special education co-taught teacher, and I worked with our Director of Student Services, and to be able to give kids exactly what they need, we might have had 6 or 7 kids in the 5th grade classroom who need specific services. So the co-taught, that teacher's not there all day, but it's there for every single one of the services that they need, so they don't have to be pulled out. And then the times that she's not needed there, we have her in the 4th grade classrooms. Again, we had rigged up schedules so they can overlap and work simultaneously. So with those kids in 4th grade need, that co-teacher is in, again, working there. And the whole premise is, as you get older, kids have that stigma, I don't want to leave the room, or I don't want to be different than anybody else. So to have them included as much as possible is the best possible thing that we can have, make them feel confident about themselves. So it's a really good way to make sure that they're getting the services, what they need in the classroom. So looking at our spacing, just so you know, so we have 2 learning centers currently. So we have a special education teacher in grade 4, special education teacher in grade 5. And when those kids do have pull-out services during WIN and other times of the day, they will go visit. And as Jeff said, right now it is hard because our 5th grade special education teacher is upstairs. But if you're a 5th grade teacher in the modular, that's a long walk for those kids to get there. But no matter what happens, you can't construct that building where it would be much shorter of a walk. Our access classroom is for students that have either language-based issues or sometimes behavioral issues that are there. Edith Wilson is a great teacher in there. We have a speech room, our OT or PT room, with an attached office. So we share right now our speech and language with our occupational therapist. And right now, like our OT, true story, like we have the curtain on the stage, so we don't have a room really for our OT, Katie Scales, who's fantastic. So what happens is we'll close the curtain, so if a kid's up there working on some of the stuff that they need with OT, that they can have their privacy, that's there. So it's really important to try to get a space. We talked over here about, psychologist guidance, space for the BCBA. Jeff talked about the wellness suite in there. And even something like Dale Street's probably one of the few schools in the country that doesn't have any conference room, let alone a special education conference room. So when they're running an IEP meeting, we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul to try to even figure out where we're going to do that. So what classroom has a special, and we have to be in there, but that only has so much time. So really important to, in whatever new school is, to give space for those things, because it's important for the parents and it's also important for the staff.
Use your office a lot too.
They do, yep. And then looking here, Jeff mentioned the sensory rooms. And then I think also something that I don't think everybody kind of is quite aware of is our ELL learners rather. In looking at that, our English language learners need a space. So Gigi Lozano, who's our EL teacher who works in multiple buildings, but again, when she comes in, we're trying to say, okay, who's in this room? Nobody's in this room. So to give those people a space so they have their own classrooms, they have their own resources that they can use rather than trying to, Jimmy rig and be in different classrooms right there. I think we do a really good job of it, but it's not easy.
And I would say that, our EL population has grown significantly in the last 5 years. So we have students that come in, English is a second language for some of these students, and we provide the services for them, but lots of times they need to be out of the classroom to have that discrete instruction. And that's really problematic at Dale Street.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Each classroom, again, flexible seating. We try to do the best we can. As I said, our PTO and MCPE are absolutely fantastic, as well as obviously Mary Brule in the Department of Student Services. The small break areas would be so nice to have to allow educators to work with small groups of students. So again, when you're doing that whole class activity, if the math specialist isn't in a room, it'd be great to be able to have a small space where she could work with 3 or 4 kids for 10 minutes before they rejoin the whole class. Would be awesome. Again, considerations are visual impairments, stairs, and again, this just happened to us last year where we were working with Perkins and working on like just creating tape on stairs and doorways and everything. And as you can imagine, Dale Street, it's a little bit harder to kind of outfit that, but we do it because it's best for the kids and that's what we need to do. Then the last thing over here with our key components is just elevators. So right now, if we have a student that, breaks their ankle and is on the 2nd floor, we just have to figure out, we change specials now all over, because if they go to specials on the 1st floor, we don't want that student going up and down. We have the little elevator that goes to our 1.5 floor, if that's what it is, you know what I mean? You come in on the main level and then you go up 3 or 4 stairs. So you have that little elevator, but if you need to go upstairs, then what do you do? So I think probably 2 times in the last 2 or 3 years, working with Kathy Thompson, former school nurse, we've reconstructed the whole schedule. And there was actually one time that we actually moved a classroom outside of the modular and switched it with a classroom that was upstairs because of a student's need. And that student's need was most important, but it does kind of cause a little bit of commotion and stuff like that. But you don't, unless you live there every day, it's, you don't, that 2nd floor is just not accessible by any type of elevator.
For sure. So I highlighted before the areas in purple that are, that's not working. Oh, right here. These special education areas here. And again, we wanted to make sure that those areas were really all around our classrooms to make it easy accessible for our kids, for our teachers, and making sure that they get any services they need right next to their classroom or their pod. And again, the 2nd floor mirrors that educational wing there. So as we talked about the wellness suite, having the psychologist and treatment space, that was really important for us, and having the guidance nurse, BCBA, OTPT, all together in that wellness suite, and actually putting OTPT near the gymnasium, because that is also a whole body experience for kids, using their whole body in OT and PT. And also it makes sense to have it right next to the gymnasium. And that was a request from the teachers. It made a lot of sense to do that. Resource room for pull-out services of up to 10 students. That was a really important piece to have that located between the pods, so it's equitable access for all kids. The self-contained classroom, or the access that Steve had mentioned before, integrated into one of the 5 classroom pods. So again, it's a close proximity for kids and teachers. And then the small group room for pull-out services for up to 6 students. We wanted to have that centrally located between the pods. It made a lot of sense for that, whether it's small group reading, small group mathematics. These were extras. These were not included in MSBA, but we felt they were really important for the design of our kids and for our teachers to have those spaces. So that was part of the 1,100 additional net square footage that we put in for special education over what was required for MSBA.
And where is that, Jeff, in the picture, that pull-out room for the math or the?
Right here.
It's
On the
purple
corner.
crescendo.
Yeah, right. So that was part of it.
Oh, it's part of
Yeah,
the.
it's part of that. And the
Oh.
OTPT was over here across from there.
And when you talked about the teacher having a spot to like test someone,
Mm-hmm.
where is that in the
That is right here, the edge of this one right here.
edge of that?
Yeah, that
area?
that square right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's not off the classroom, that's off the sped area.
It is, but it's all within the pod.
And I think there was one in each one, each one of the pods.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
would I be able to see in my classroom when I'm assessing someone, or I'm actually leaving my classroom?
Oh, you're leaving the classroom.
I'm
Yeah.
leaving the
Yeah.
classroom with the kid.
Right. So one of the things that we had put in here, Steve and I and some teachers and other folks had visited a school that the architects did in Harvard. And what we wanted to do is have hallway space out here, which you see right in here, additional. So it's almost a half wall right in here.
Yeah.
That allowed small group instruction to happen here and small group instruction to happen here. It was just a better use of space. So we actually saw that in action to see how it would look like, and it made a lot of sense to do that. And then you could have whiteboards here and whiteboards there, so you could do instruction. But it allowed people to take these 2 classes, shared it, and these 2 classes shared it, and you could do additional instruction out here. We thought that was a really important thing. We had it here too, and over here too.
That's like what you
Teachers
have
loved
to
it.
offer, right? You have the pull out in your.
We do,
home.
yeah, we have a couple, it's a small school, but we have group spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, our group spaces ended up being a little too large. They function better if we put like a divider in them.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
this is ultimately like a better design to have more smaller spaces than one large group space. Because we're at the point now where like we're dividing it. I have like full dividers in the group space, which kind of, it seems counterintuitive, but
Yeah.
it's a large space, and multiple groups want to work in one space at a time, and multiple grade levels share that space. So again, like having smaller spaces but more of them, I think is better.
And you saw this in Harvard, Jeff?
We did, yeah.
So we could go and.
We
see
could,
this stuff.
absolutely.
Did Ashley put anything like that in?
No, unfortunately they didn't. They didn't have anything for instruction here. They might have had some small group spaces, like small instruction, but nothing to utilize. Shrewsbury has that. I visited the new Shrewsbury one last fall, and they have something similar to this. I just like this design better because it was so functional when we saw it. It made so much sense, and the teachers thought it was great. It just made a lot of sense. It wasn't obtrusive like in the hallway, so it just became part of an extension of the classroom. It made a lot of sense. So Harvard was another good example of building it right next to an existing school and then knocking it down like Ashland did. So they built it right, was it in back of it?
I think
next
it's to
to
the
it.
left.
It was the
I think
left of
to
it,
the-
right.
You're
It's-
facing it was to the left.
And then, so the kids went there the entire time during the construction, and then they knocked it down afterwards.
Okay, this is a super picky question, but when you do that in the halls, that does seem like a good idea to pull out. Well, where do kids put their coats and boots and stuff all in the?
Great question.
Great question. Yeah.
So this is the other thing we spent a lot of time on. So there were 2 things that we looked at. One were cubbies inside the classroom,
Yeah.
and the other were cubbies outside the classroom. So, do you want to talk about that? Because we went around and around and around about that, and the teachers really made the ultimate decision. We kind of showed them what they both looked like. We saw them, and then
Yeah.
they kind of looked at it.
Yeah, so what we did, and this cut into the design of the school, because when you look at it like that, we said, okay, we're gonna take some of the classroom out here to have that, but as I said earlier, just really important, so if you have your math specialist and she's in kind of co-teaching for a lesson, whatever, and then you have 4 kids that come out, they would be right out here, and there'd be a board for them, so they're still connected to the classroom, It's a 10-minute kind of boom, we're gonna go in, look at this, we're gonna break the problem apart. And even if you didn't have a teacher out there were windows, you could see right out there, so the kids could go out there and do that. So, so we had cubbies on the inside, of these, like walls, so they were like straight walls, that's what Harvard had them, was
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah.
But I think Harvard did both, because I think the second grade maybe, and first grade had them inside, and then the
younger grades
the
had them
fourth and
inside.
fifth grade had them
Had 'em
outside.
outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it was amazing, because when you walk down, there was no mess, because we had talked to the principals, like, how does the hallway go? But
Right.
the hallway
That
was
a big
still,
concern of ours.
even though they had all the stuff, they weren't like it is like at Dale Street now, where the lockers are in the hallway. Like this hallway was still the same width apart. We went all through that, but it was a great discussion with the teachers, because you had certain teachers that wanted it, in and out, and we kind of just, went round and round.
So here's, I knew we had a picture on it, Carolyn, but that's the rendition they did for us. And that seemed to work out.
So big.
Yeah, it seemed to work out really well.
Thank you.
We have similar, like, interior cubbies in my pool, and, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean,
Keeps everything nice and clean.
like a clean safety standpoint,
Yeah.
it makes all the difference.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we wanted to end on a positive note, and, we're obviously not where we want to be, or we want it to be, for November of, 2023. If things had worked out, we'd be ready to open in September 2024. But I think the positive things that we can go to is that, the feasibility gave us a lot of information and feedback that we can use going forward. That all that effort and time wasn't for no reason, it was all for naught. It was something we can use, and it's important that we make sure we look at that. And the educational program itself, definitely needs some updating, but it's fairly solid, absolutely fairly solid. Annual town meeting allocations, the 250 each year, that really shows that we're looking to get a new building or a project anyway, get that done. That's a positive piece. You folks are meeting, you're established, you're meeting and moving the process forward, and we're still being considered for MSBA. So that's a really important piece too. And again, we should hear within a few weeks of where we are. But, I guess the big question that you folks have to deal with and we have to tackle at some point is, if we're not invited in December, what next? And I think that's kind of the thing that we have to think about, and whether we move forward as a community without MSBA, or we submit again for another year. So we have to just kind of work that out. But I think it's, this is positive what we're doing right now, that, you folks gather data on the survey. We get to understand some of the issues that happened last time and not repeat them, and move forward. So we're happy to answer any questions about that, but we want to give you an overview of what it looks like for the educational program.
Jeff, can you go back to the slide of the diagram of the full school?
That one or the other one?
No, the other one.
Oops. Ugh, jumping around.
We spent a bunch of time talking about it, but I think really good kind of visual representation in terms of the ratio of classroom size to total school size.
Mm-hmm.
Right, as we get into enrollments, I don't see you covered this off in your presentation too, that the net classroom space isn't the ultimate arbiter of the size of the school you build to build all the other space. And when I was just staring at it, just kind of brought it to life that just think about Carolyn, communications and education, so get a project and different attributes we got to think through.
Yeah.
Like that's a big one for people to understand, because it was such a discussion topic last time. But it's like when you look at all the square footage, it's not
Right, it's not classroom space.
The office in the second floor on this stuff.
Right.
So double that classroom size.
So this whole section here is a double,
It's done.
the second floor, but everything else remains the
But
same.
it's about half.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's not much more than that. I had a couple questions. So
Sure.
I like, that was very helpful for me, how you tied a lot of your educational points into kind of what we did before,
Mhm.
which is great. That said, obviously, what we did before is scrapped, as far as I'm concerned, right? But I guess my understanding is, I'm assuming that a lot of the design elements that you talked about
Mhm.
are kind of need to have for a new school. So
Mhm.
is that how you're feeling?
I would say so.
Absolutely.
And that includes like the pods, all the special
Absolutely.
education with the peers, the breakout rooms, the
Mhm.
cover rooms, all that stuff. Okay, so that's why I like how you did it actually, because I mean, it gives us visual representation of what we did before, but regardless of what the new school looks like, it won't look like that, I can tell you that. But the preference is to have similar types of.
Mhm. Absolutely.
We need those components.
Yep, that's where I was going. If you had all that space, Steve, how much of your schedule would change? I love how you guys do that schedule, and God bless you for having. I can only imagine with the daily grind or the weekly grind, of changing it around with the space that you have. If you had all that space, how much does that schedule change?
Good question. You know, I don't know if the schedule changed because we're mandated by the state to have certain minutes for ELA and math and so forth. I think what changes in it, Mike, is that when you're looking at like the library, for instance, so you might have library and your classes in library where Bill's classes in the makerspace. So right now you want the makerspace to be loud and collaborative and all that, but then you have the library on the other side. That's at the same time.
With
So
no
that's
wall.
With
There's
no
no
wall
wall.
that
Just
we
one same
kind of
room.
live with. And I think the other thing is trying to schedule, you know, the things outside the day-to-day schedules that are there. I mean, obviously I talked about PE and the different special schedules that have to be moved around and maneuvered because obviously your ensembles are your biggest bunch of kids, so you have to make sure you have spaces for that. But I think the day-to-day operations where you have meetings where, you know, there's an IEP meeting and all of a sudden the secretaries and myself are putting our heads together like who's not in what room and where we going. Or, you know, if like, again, if you have something in one of the classrooms in the access room where there's somebody that just might need some TLC for like one-to-one in that access room, where do you bring the other students and what happens with that type of stuff? So I think that the schedule itself, the shell of the schedule might not change because of the fact you're gonna need an hour for math, you're gonna need an hour for ELA, you have your writing components. But within that schedule, if you're doing something in science, instead of being in a smaller classroom, if you could be in some type of STEAM room or something like that they go down to, that's going to help us tremendously, you know, with the materials that are in there, the size of the room, the access that the kids have.
Along those same lines, and I don't mean to, you know, but does a school like this require, and assuming same classroom sizes, so just ignore the number of classrooms, does a school like this require additional staff?
I mean, I don't think, if you're looking at the staffing in, you know, the classroom settings themselves, it would remain the same with the kids that we have now, but if we had an increase in enrollment, absolutely.
Yeah.
Enrollment
So
drives
same
the staff.
enrollment, so that's really what it is. Okay.
I mean, I know that enrollment was a big issue, right? So during the
Yeah.
last time, and MSBA made us do the 575 and they wouldn't go back on it, and that was that. I mean, that we had conversation with them and they said, sure, you can go back on it, but then you go into the back of the line again if you want to do that. And that didn't make a lot of sense to us, so we kept going forward on that. But, you know, I can't imagine they'd look at 575 now.
Sure.
I can't imagine they would. So
And
that
that's
would, that
kinda
would
what
change the 12 classrooms to maybe 10.
So more than anything else, our enrollment is kind of the basis of what the staff is. Is that fair to add?
That's very fair.
But doesn't having the music room does ease up your schedule because you can have someone in the gym and have someone have music at the same time now. So
Absolutely.
you would have, with that kind of design, you're gonna have some flexibility there
Absolutely.
that.
Or an area where the gym's not occupied, if somebody
Exactly.
Right.
doing OT or PT can go
Right.
use it,
You
right?
can do it, so it just makes everything easier in terms of flexibility. Where on that one, I can't see the print necessarily, are the steam rooms, you said you're actually gonna have.
So there was one in each level.
Yeah, and I think they were right by the stairs, Jeff. I think it was right over here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
one for each
Mhm.
Yeah.
level.
And I think you worded it right with the ease of the schedule
Yeah,
because it's, you know, even when we talked earlier about like chorus, like you want to give those kids the maximum size. So when Jeff talked earlier about, you know, the thought of the music room, you know, that when you came in over here, you know, the music room right there, it's just great because you could have a space where if you had 40 string players and 40 chorus kids in a room that was that big, you could put the divider up and you could both be there. Where your brass kids could be in the cafetorium, but again, the loudness of their playing wasn't affecting anybody because that was totally separated from all the classrooms are over there. So yeah, the ease of things and just maneuvering people around, and when you have your EL students and where do they go, it's just, you know, it's really just a proverbial shell game that we do now.
How many lunch and recess periods do you have? Do the grades eat lunch together, or the whole grade?
The whole grade doesn't eat lunch together, but they have the same time. So what happens is, so if there's a time, if fifth grade starts at 11:10, so they have, let's say there's 5 classrooms that eat in the cafeteria, well, simultaneously, the other 4 classes are out at recess, and then they switch over. So that gives me just another time. So again, one thing that we want to do is during common planning time, you want to do the business of the school, but you know that those are other clerical things you have to do. Who's collecting the field trip money? What are the shirts going to look like? All that type of stuff. We don't want that done during common planning time, so I was able to develop a schedule that gave the teachers all the same lunchtime. So if they wanted to do that during their lunchtime, say, hey, let's meet in this room for this lunch day, they can do that now. And the same thing goes for 4th grade.
I didn't know if this would I didn't know if the cafeteria would be bigger, if there would be additional.
I want it.
Outdoor spaces. Like, is there? There's one playground at Dale right now.
Correct.
Would there be more than one or one playgrounds?
Yeah, no, it'll be one playground, but you bring up a great point, Robert, because with the size of the cat, and Jeff and I have talked about this back, you know, is we would be able to have one lunch then, which would, again, it would free up, you know, look at some of the constraints on that schedule. So they would all be able to be there. And again, I don't get it too much now, but I want to be in this class and I want their lunches together and stuff like that. Like that happens. But right now, it was just switched so they all have at least the same, you know, time for lunch, but they might not be at lunch and recess at the same time.
Medfield teachers don't do recess, do they?
They do it once a week.
They do it once.
Once a week, yeah.
Mhm.
And parents swimming as well, right?
Not at Dale.
Depending on the school. We
Yeah.
look, they do.
Yeah, no, we have our teaching assistants, our behavioral techs, the teacher, and myself, you know, depending on which way I go between the cafeteria and the recess field.
Another question, and I don't, just high level, you said there may be some updates to the ed plan, and again, I'm no expert on it, but I read it. What do you see just high level as far as, we get into MSBA, or we have to do it anyways, I suppose.
Yeah, I think looking at our math curriculum has changed, so we want to update all of that. Looking at what we're doing with literacy right now, we'd have to update all that. So more curricular type
Yeah.
issues. I mean, I think everything else fairly consistent.
I mean, the goals are still the same,
Mhm.
you know, all that
Mhm.
stuff is.
Schedule, that's it. The schedule that Steve just showed you is different from the one in the last one, so we
Yeah,
have to update those kinds of things.
Okay.
Anything else about it?
It's helpful, that was really a lot of information.
It's better than the 72 slide one.
But if you
That was a lot of
if you
information.
haven't read, the educational plan they put together, and I believe that was in the, which part was that, the PSR or the, no?
We
was
got
in-
that.
Schematic design.
Yeah, it was in the,
Yeah.
it's also online, I read it online, so it's in the schematic
And
design.
it's all in there.
We got it.
So there's some really good documents
We got it a
still,
while ago, it's June or July.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got it
Mhm.
before the summer.
Some light reading over the summer.
yeah. There's some really good stuff in that, and on that same point, on that website that is still active, you can go to the Dale Street School Project, I think it's labeled 2018 or whatever it
Right,
was.
yeah.
A lot of that site selection stuff, is really detailed pretty heavily in there, you know, things like that we keep kind of talking about, just good background stuff.
Yeah, the monthly updates are all there too and all that. That's all there.
Yeah, those are a little less helpful, only because
There's some nice graphics.
the graphics are nice, but they're more like very specific to what we were talking about at that
Right,
time.
yeah, for
I
sure.
would say those submissions to MSBA are, you know, one's 1,000 pages, one's like 700 pages.
Right.
But you could search words in you know, site selection was what I searched, and boom, I found it on page 18, and it was like 25 pages long. You know what I mean? Things like that. I think as we progress, we find out what MSBA does. The part of my ask to everyone here would definitely be, please read this, and then we can you know, at least, you know, all be on the same common ground when we talk about it. Because as you can see, our work will be different than this, but they've done so much work already to kind of figure out what the town and the children need. That was helpful. So really good job, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Any questions after this meeting you think of driving home, give us a call. Happy to.
Yeah.
Do the talk.
Great. Carolyn, why don't you talk about the next item on the agenda, the administration offices. I think there's probably some good discussion around that.
So I have this thought about when we move ahead with our new project here, whether it's renovating or replacing Dale's building, however we're gonna do it, that involves school administration offices. And I wanted to share it out with everybody here, not to make any decisions or vote or anything tonight, but to just get you thinking about it, the pros and cons, and maybe even talking to people in the community about it, about what they may think. I have to talk to two select people and Christine and Jeff about it. And I don't know if everyone knows, but the school administration used to be at the Dale Street School. And in the 90s, when they were thinking about renovating the town hall, they came up with this idea of putting the school administration on the 3rd floor of the renovated town hall. And part of that reason or decision, there were a couple of reasons for it, good reasons for it, but one of those was that, you needed 2/3 go to town meeting to get a building project. And they thought by making a combined project for town offices, school offices, would get more people involved and more support for it. The second reason was that at Dale Street, we were running out of classroom space. So those were the years in 95 to 2003 or 4 where we had very large class sizes. And by taking the administration and putting it at town hall, we had some room for classrooms, which helped at Dale Street. It still wasn't enough. We had to put modulars on in 2000, but it did help. And the third big reason that we thought it might be a good idea is that for any of you who were around pre-98, the school department and the town departments didn't necessarily work together often or well. There was some thought of as like we're, it's for the town or it's for the school, but not like we're on the team. And we thought by having town offices and school offices in the same place, then it would be a nice approach to teamwork. And I actually think that has worked out really well. You don't hear the arguments that I used to hear when I first got to town between, we can't do this for school because we want this for the town, so the schools weren't part of the town. So I was thinking, if we're going to go and, make this new school, it might be the right time to move the school administration back. I philosophically feel school administration belongs in the school, so that superintendent can walk out and see teachers and kids and be connected. I think it should be, easy for parents to go to school administration, and I think it's more accessible at a school than it is in the 3rd floor of the town hall. And I think also, the day we moved everybody in is a lovely space, and it was pretty and renovated, and it was very nice, but it was small from day one. There wasn't the adequate meeting space that the school department needs for professional development and for, some meetings get very large. You heard Steve talking about SPED meetings. Well, there's a lot of people that sometimes are coming to SPED meetings and need a good size room. And I know on the town side, obviously they've made it work, but we've been in the warrant committee room and it's hard to fit all of the members, let alone the public in there. So I think they too could benefit by, if the school administration moved in to the school building, then they would have the 3rd floor in order to spread out and have a few more spaces. So it's not covered by MSBA. I want to be really clear with everybody as you think about it. But if you're building and you're there, it's obviously cheaper than, doing it on your own. So I just want to put that idea, that thought out about including that in the future school design.
Christine or Jeff, do you guys have any comments? Because you work in the town hall.
No problem. I just don't want it to be an issue if MSBA is not gonna cover it and becomes a part of the project and cost funding it, and that's the only issue I have. I think that work great together. It's nice just walking downstairs during budget time and we have conversations and that's really good, but I could certainly get in my car and drive there too.
Well, we're trying to get more steps, so we'll just walk.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Easy to go down and get a cookie and those kind of things.
But generally, it's fairly tight on the third floor.
I'm sorry?
Is it generally fairly tight on the third floor?
Yeah, it's tight over there.
And Christine, you could use the space as well as.
I mean, just to give you an example, we have our out-of-district placement person who has a lot of confidential conversations. She has file cabinets all around her, and she walks in a little part of her desk, and that's the privacy she has as a part of the special education office. So it's a little ridiculous. But that's the best we can do. Sometimes she has to go into another office to make phone calls, so yeah, we all need space, for sure.
Do we know what the like approximate square footage of the third floor is?
It's so choppy up there.
I don't know square foot. I mean, I know. I don't really know.
It's a really good question, though.
And just what, and then like ideally, what the ideal square footage would be? Like, would it would it be double? Maybe? Ideally.
Double would be great. I mean, I think we should do the measurements and figure that out, but.
I'm sure we have plans that goes down in the night.
Yeah,
And one thought, because I agree with Jeff, I mean, the school is the most important, that's the priority, right? So if at some point we felt like we wanted to do this, to have the school administration back in school, I could potentially see a way we might have two proposals for the town. One with the administration in and one without. So that, and I don't want to in any way not get the school, I want to be really clear about that. So, you know, that's the kind of thing I think we need to think about, because, you know, it comes down to money and tax dollars, and it's, you know, even though it has all the things a school is supposed to have, MSBA doesn't, you know, reimburse for it.
I think if you got into that, the question would be, like, all right, do you wanna move it out, yes, no? If you wanna move it out, like, where's the most logical place for it to go? Is it an elementary school, is it middle school, is it high school? Then match it up where you have space, excess space today, right? If there's excess space in the high school, could you do it there? If it's missing, but you could do it there. So like, those are the questions you would get versus just building new.
I think for me, I think there are also cons. I mean, Jeff can speak to some of the meetings that happen in central office are pretty confidential, and you put it on a school, people coming in and out of the school, the confidentiality of what's happening there and the people that are attending those meetings is now gone. So I just think also, you know, the out-of-district coordinator, just all the different roles and things that raise to that level. It just, you know, dismissal times, arrival times, parking, like I just, you know, I worked in Westwood. I was there when Westwood High and they attached the administration to it. There isn't, at least there was not really this crossover where administration, I mean, at the time the superintendent did eat lunch in our faculty room, so that was great, but I don't know that there's this like necessarily increase of crossover due to proximity per se, depending on the priorities of. I think we'd have to do an analysis of
Yeah.
priorities and just, we had such a battle last time and the school didn't go through. I don't know how this will be received when costs are so much higher and this is just gonna add.
I agree with that, and I also worry that this feels like a new ask to me, and I sit in the meeting on the school committee where we talk about facilities a fair amount, and just understanding the other facility challenges we have in our other buildings. I just feel like this would be a really hard sell to any person who has listened to any of our meetings about some of the challenges that we have facility-wise. All of a sudden, out of the blue, we're building school administration offices, or adding that as part of this plan. I do worry that this would jeopardize us being able to do what we're here to do, which is to help the children of Medfield and help the 4th and 5th graders and actually do something about the Dale Street School. I think this would be a really hard sell, and I'm worried that there would be a fashion of people who would take this and turn it into something that it's not and kill the project again, personally.
Yeah, that again does That's why I wanna talk about it, just upon, thinking that, if we think that would happen.
I think the pros are obvious, right? I mean, obviously, you get more space, right? Easy, you get more space for the town administration and the school administration. I think that's clear that that could be used, sure. My main con is obviously dollars and cents. That's it. But we don't know, I mean, there's so many unknowns with this project as it is, but, you know, if Dale Street's used location-wise, and if, the second floor of Dale Street has inadequate sized concrete rooms on the second floor that, you know, have some structural integrity that we can reuse and kind of save some spots on that, but they can't be classrooms. Well, maybe that's an idea, right? Things like that someone would really have to dig into from a structural / engineering standpoint to figure out, like, hey, we can reuse this portion of the building, but you can't have classrooms here. Whatever it may be, you know what I mean? It's worth saving or it's not. I mean, I have a personal feeling on that. I'm sure we've walked the building, some of us have these feelings on that, but my main con is just cost. So I think it's worth not killing the subject, but in talking about it more, especially in the coming months. Hopefully, there's an architect on board and we're in MSBA and we can say, hey, look, here's some options.
Is there a way to get MSBA to pay for it? Like, in other words, is there a way to make it? And I only say that because I'm thinking like Dale Street, right? So like moving central office into a school building doesn't necessarily have to be Dale Street, right? It could be moving it into a high school and moving. I don't know exactly what's at the high school, but it could involve moving something from the high school to Dale Street, right? Like some other kind of program that's the high school that encompasses the entire district. Maybe now that's at Dale Street, and that's a way that MSBA pays for the idea, but not necessarily.
Or we could design it for 575 children and just use those extra classrooms. Right?
But I'd say
That's
not
in
knowing
your
what's
office, but no, I mean that's unique.
Well,
I would-
we didn't, I'll just say so 98 was when the town was finished being renovated, town hall, and administration was over there. And then we did the high school and the middle school flip. But we didn't design the space then because we just had moved everybody into town hall, and it just didn't make sense, right? And, you know, we had a big project there because we flipped those two, basically built a brand new high school and also renovated Memorial. So.
I think generally, Robert, I like the way you think. I would be hard pressed to do something like that, just to, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
it just seems unethical a little bit, but also just not the right thing to do. Yeah. I do like the way you think. All right, thanks. Anything else on that particular topic? I think those. All right, the last thing, we don't have to talk about next meetings. Did everyone see my note on first Wednesday of every month? I know some of you weren't here. Again, so Medfield TV is broadcasting our meetings to make it easy for them, as well as just to get a consistent kind of structure of meetings for us. We were trying for every Wednesday. And if something comes up, I don't know, a holiday falls on a Wednesday, whatever it may be, either we skip it, reschedule it, whatever. I think we just deal with it as we go. Is that fair? And again, I think attendance has been pretty good overall. And again, people have been pretty good at reaching out to me if they can't make it. Really, what my goal is, if you can't make it, just reach out to Meredith and I. With text or an email is fine. I just want to make sure we have meetings with forums. It's the only thing I really care about. So we're actually doing stuff, moving forward. I want to have enough people here to get it done. Like getting those meeting minutes off, finally was a good thing for us to. So the next thing is we have this. Gene, we're on the schedule for the 14th, correct?
Sure.
I wrote an email to everybody. No one responded to me. Were you on that? I think we were. Anyways, I wrote an email to the select board. We do have a meeting on the 14th. It is not a requirement for everyone in this room to be there. It is going to be a posted meeting for us. And generally speaking, I just got a kind of a bullet point list of things that, I'm gonna go through. I assume that I'll kind of lead it. I asked Bill to step in and explain kind of the results of the survey, just because that was kind of one of the bigger things that, this committee's done to date. Just a good thing. All right, so my bullet points of kind of what I'm gonna summarize is number of meetings we've had. We were formed in February of '23, full meetings, communication sub-meetings as well. What we've done to date in regards to the reviewing of plans of the former SBC, what we did a little bit to understand the first proposal, kind of basically summary of our first 3 or 4 meetings. The statement of interest was sent in to MSBA. Steve did a great presentation. I emailed them, the select board, a link to that. I don't think we need to go through that again, but generally speaking, I think that was a very insightful meeting that we've had to date. We did receive approval at town meeting for funding to support SBC progress and early feasibility study work. So we have, some funding now, which is a good thing. Again, the communication subcommittee was formed, survey. A lot of this group visited Foxborough to see kind of the outcome of a new building project, and we've been discussing sites a little bit as well. So those are kind of the highlights that I have to date. The other thing that I would say would be Medfield Day. Anybody here have any other? Oh, and I'm going to talk about tonight's meeting as well. The presentation we saw tonight. Any other highlights that, if you can or cannot be there, you think we should bring up? But unfortunately, we haven't had a ton of action items, which I think we'll find out what we're up against in the next month. So the next MSBA meeting is 14th of December, Jeff, right? And I think it's official of who's in the next round then. So we got about 6 weeks to wait. Last time we were in, we found out a couple weeks prior. Hopefully we find out prior and we have some good news, but obviously if we do, we'll go from there.
That's already set up, Jeff, the 14th. They've already told you on the 14th of December.
No, they just said that's their regularly scheduled board meeting.
Oh, that's
It's posted.
their
Yeah,
meeting.
their meeting,
Oh, I
yeah.
thought you meant
No.
us talking.
MSBA.
Them talking to us.
MSBA posts their meetings yearly, actually. I think it's, so I think they have it every other month on a Wednesday, and then they have interim meetings as well, whether that be for OPMs, architects, things of that nature. They're not incredibly exciting, but their board meetings are long and they actually do a lot during them. In the last board meeting, actually, Jeff, did the reimbursement rates go up for the state? Is that what it was? How much was it?
Yeah.
Run up to $568 gross per year. So our prior project was $360. And then they upped it to $432, and now we've up to $560. So it's a significant increase. That's the good news.
So based on the last project, it would have been about $4 million. That's fantastic.
A little bit helps.
That's a big number. Yeah, absolutely.
So for the group meeting, as the communications subcommittee, or anybody discussed, how, so like get out to the public, is it gonna be in the patch or the hometown weekly or anything like that? That was one of the things I wanted to ask, on this piece is, we're meeting Monday, communication subcommittee. Do we wanna all do what we did with the survey and just email a little notice out to people that you know? And Jeff, could you put that out to the schools about the combined meeting for people to watch or attend?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
7. It's the select board's monthly meeting.
And school committee will put it out. Shall you usually put that out?
So we're on
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
We'll definitely put that out.
Not a seven. Not a seven.
Well, will it be in the hometown weekly as well?
We haven't met yet to discuss that, because I needed to come here to ask that. But if you would like to do that, and like us to do that,
It just needs to be submitted by probably Sunday then to get into,
oh, that's before the meeting.
okay, to get into the 9th. Because the meeting's on 14th, right?
I mean,
The deadline to get into the Sunday before.
But, yeah, so, you know,
Yeah, you want to just.
Yeah.
Get all of them.
can you do that? Okay. We will, Bob's gonna try to get to them before Sunday.
Steve, will the warrant, you guys gonna have a posted meeting that day as well?
Yeah, so we did, talk about it at our last meeting. I think our thinking was that, we would post it, but not everybody's expected to go.
Yeah.
So probably just, Bob and myself, we'll just be there in case there are questions.
So,
So, and you guys have, the school committee has a posted meeting.
With that too.
That's a posted meeting, correct?
how do you wanna, frame it then? FYI, there's a joint meeting, as, giving an SBC update, just wanna frame it very simply like that, is there something else that people want it to say, patch or hometown?
I think simple and just that the public's invited, right? Like, we welcome the public to come hear the work that we've done and see, ask any questions or give any comments, just so that they understand that we want to hear from them. Right?
I think that's it. 'Cause that's,
What's the,
Is the select board doing that?
is there like much broader agenda that night, or is that?
Oh, yeah, we have a huge agenda. We're meeting at 6:00, and then we reserve time for this at 7. So we're trying to have some of our initial meetings.
So Christine, does the select board want people just to listen or come with questions or ask things? I'm unclear about like how it's gonna actually
So are they.
flow.
We were following what was in the bylaw, which is that you were just coming in to give an update on the commission. So
Okay,
that's really how you were managing the agenda board, that you were just coming in to give us an update
Okay.
on what's been done.
that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so I actually think that we should say, I don't wanna make it seem like a,
it's really not even a joint
No,
meeting.
no.
It's just us at their agenda, like, I wouldn't like,
I think the email is a perfectly good idea. I don't
yeah,
think
just say that if you're interested in an update of what the SBC is doing, they're presenting at the selectmen's meeting.
Perfect.
And then leave that. Don't come with questions, that kind of thing.
Well, they can come with questions. That's not gonna hurt our feelings. That's
Well,
fine.
no, not us. I'm just not sure the select board is giving the time for questions. That's what I.
About it,
Be
and the
concerned about.
presentation, yeah, right?
Well, that's my general rule for all of you.
Right.
but-
That's why I said that.
No, no,
So is it not a job stream then?
no, it's at a regular select.
It's at the town hall.
It's not a job meeting.
Well, if you're attending, it's direct.
Well, we're posting it as one just in case.
Sounds like we're just at.
it's not they're joining a single
Yeah,
purpose
but
agenda.
if we were all coming as a joint meeting, but no, this was not intended as a forum or anything like that. It was presented to me that this was the update from the FBC as outlined in the bylaw.
Okay.
And Mike, just so, we do have a handout that we use at Medfield Day that is an update of the SBC.
Yeah. I'll bring those.
So you have them?
I mean, I can print it on the website.
Is there any-
extras.
Who has the extras? And me? I think I have the extras.
Are you gonna be there?
Yes,
Do you wanna bring them?
yes. I'm just
And I will
writing
print.
myself a note.
Don't print any.
Yeah, no, don't print
got a lot.
anymore. I
I mean,
will bring those in case there are some people who would like it, whatever.
Maybe. All right. So. It's really just as an update.
And for future updates, all the bylaw says is someone go and update. It doesn't necessarily have to be a lot of coming.
Right, what we had talked about was doing this as a joint meeting, so that the public could also come
off with
I did ask for that
everybody,
in
yeah.
my email, but all I did was get on the agenda, so,
I think maybe, like, listen, let's get through the update. My point of view would be,
they want more, we can give more.
like, if you had an hour and a half to get, like, have Steve do a half hour on his finance projections, have Jeff and T just do, like, a slightly different version of what they just did, and then us give an update on, like, some of the progress we made. Like, at least gets everyone to the same starting point of, like, where we're at. So I think that'd be productive, just having some side conversations with, you know, some people involved in these processes, like, not, I think it'd be beneficial from an education perspective, so that's, like, well, maybe get there.
Or does that fit into the SBC, the communication subcommittee has been talking about maybe getting, having information sessions, update forums, at a place and keep going to it like a high school library. And then we could publish this, a date on such and such date, members of the SBC will be here to take your questions and we'll update you. We were thinking if we got it on calendars at regular time and place, that it might help people tune in and get used to.
I mean, I was pushing for it because I want to get the stakeholders,
Yeah.
being the select board, the school
Yeah.
committee,
Yes.
this committee, the
Everybody
warrant
on the
committee,
same page.
all
Right.
hear the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, so that,
Versus,
I agree, that's just a different purpose than what we were talking about for the public. And so I just want to be clear about the purpose of.
Yeah, no, I think where you're going though, I think we should make sure everyone knows that we're meeting the first Wednesday of every month
Yes,
and let people come here.
yes. And the more we get out this sort of, and
I think
it's
it's
more
great.
steady, it's gonna be easier for people to know.
Especially if-
Everyone knows the selectmen meet on Tuesday night.
Especially once the MSBA decision comes through,
Right.
I think it's really gonna be, I mean, since February, when we started meeting, but we have to wait till December, we have to wait till December, we have to wait till, you know what I mean, like, December is very close. So I think we'll have a very clear path or a decision to make. It's
Oh.
where I'm at.
I know you said last time we found out a couple of weeks in advance, but will we be allowed to, so our meeting is a couple of weeks in advance of December 14th. So let's say you find out we're accepted, Jeff, are we able to talk about it or not until it would come out on the 14th? I'm just trying to think of like the purpose of,
Definitely did it before the.
It might have even been a week, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
remember when I forgot.
I don't know if it was public knowledge, it's a good point. So, I mean,
just wondering.
that's good. Ready to go?
Yes.
Okay,
motion adjourned.
Steve?
Oh, second.
I just wanted to,
Second.
just real quick, guys, I just wanted to update, you on, we did have a meeting a few weeks ago, so we talked about, free cash.
Yes.
And we spent the town has, $5 million free cash. And working with the town administration, and we went through some very preliminary, nothing's decided, nothing's been voted on, but a very preliminary discussion of uses of that free cash. And one of them is to sort of increase the funding for a feasibility study. Another $500,000 or $600,000, so that, because if you do get accepted into the MSBA program, it's required that before you move into the feasibility stage, you have to have the funding already approved. So it would be important to have that done at the 2024 town meeting. So, we preliminary, nothing's decided, but we talked about putting that into the placeholder for that free cash. And then the other one was, I think we sent around a memo talking about the idea of a tax mitigation stabilization fund. And we have preliminarily talked about putting $1 million into that, creating it, putting $1 million into it at the 2024 time. So just share that with you.
So, yes, thank you. Part of your discussions too were generally, you looped me in on an email in regards to, I think it actually wasn't an email, it was from one of your meetings on debt structure, right? Can you just explain to me again, just high level, how the town views how much debt we take on? I think and I know you did it a little bit prior in the presentation to us, but just give me a refresher. Because obviously the more cash we have, the less debts we take on.
Yeah, so, I mean, we have some financial policies that have been agreed to by the select board and the warrant committee. But it currently doesn't include a debt management policy. So there's nothing that's agreed to between the two boards on that, but I think there is a informal policy at the select board level, that we should not take on more debt than existing debt minus the operating budget, basically.
Sure.
The operating budget is 70 million, our existing debt is 30 million. We shouldn't take on more debt than 40 million.
Yep.
That's the concept of it. It's very simplistic. I've had some discussions about that with one select board member, but so there's an opportunity to perhaps revisit that. But that's my knowledge of what our debt policy is. We don't have a formal one that's agreed to like the warrant committee and the select board.
Thank you for that. Yeah. All right, great. I'll see some of you next. Oh, Chris, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I thought I would bring, these are charts from MSBA that I thought might be really helpful, so I missed it.
I can scan and email it to Chris.
Yeah.
Hey, Christine, do we have any comments online by chance?
Did you have anybody online?
Oh, we didn't, okay. I'll just check.
Double check that, there wasn't.
So, piggyback, so piggybacking on, it was pretty timely, the comments that were made about, space allocations and administration offices and, what space do we have elsewhere. In 2016, MSBA did a school survey report. They're actually working on an update to this, but this data is still very relevant because Medfield actually just incorporated it in its own consolidation analysis. And you can see that MSBA basically has previously rated all of our school space based on enrollment and what they considered to be, gave each school capacity rating. So in 2016, you can see that both high school and the middle school at that point in time with enrollment at 842 at the high school and 626 at Lake Middle School. At that point in time, MSBA considered both of those schools as being under capacity. And when you look at the numbers, the enrollment numbers for the end of the last school year for us, high school is even lower now at 740 and Lake Middle School is at 582. We haven't seen the new enrollment numbers for this year, but I just thought this would be really helpful for people to actually see this because this is MSBA data. And then I think a big question that will come up either at the select board or in the public is that we do have $500,000 put aside, and I don't, other than Medfield Day expenses, none of that money is no else to spend. So I think that's going to be a big question that's going to come up is how do you plan to spend that money?
Feasibility study.
So, but that's a good answer. I mean, it's a good answer.
It's gonna cost us $1.5 million probably. It cost us $1 million last time.
So, and I put in information on these two different analysis that Mattapoisett did. They used UMass Boston, Boston and Plymouth School District both use this Bureau Veritas for doing facility assessments. So again, we have the money, we have $500,000. If we really want to look at, do a capacity analysis and use some of that money to do that, and not just the elementary levels, but also include basically the middle school, it might be helpful for looking at the big picture. And then the last thing is that MSBA came out with
advisory, that's not the right word, but they came out with a letter basically that they come out with to update all their different policies. And they are now allowing third-party grants. So we get CPA, for example, the Community Preservation Act, we got third-party grants to cover various things. We don't get penalized for using those third-party grants as part of our reimbursements, which is a big plus.
When you say reimbursements, what do you mean by that?
Not reimbursements, the,
Costs?
yeah, exactly. So they don't deduct, if you get a third-party grant, they don't deduct it from the total amount you get.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
actually take it from your own.
So if you have a $100 million project and they're gonna pay $40 million and you get $1 million grant, they're not gonna deduct it.
You take it out of your own share.
Yeah, yeah.
So it reduces your own cost. Which I thought was really good, because if we can find grants for different things, that could also save some money.
Thank you for that.
So,
Anyone else? Good. Motion to adjourn? Karen, can I start? I'll start. We'll go this way this time. Mike Weber, yes?
Yes.
Schulker, yes.
Robert Warner, yes.
Baldini, yes?
Yeah.
Carol Casey, yes. Kristen Simonini, yes.
Meredith Chamberlain, yes.
Thanks, everyone. Chris, can you email that?